Okay, so we'll start lecture number 30. Okay, so welcome all of you. So the transient stability analysis, that is, we are discussing the direct methods. Okay, so last class also we have seen the generalized formulation for energy function, and little bit we'll discuss from the last class. This is your generalized formulation for energy function. We have got it from, this is for multi-machine case, and now we'll see how we can
Cannot see
see
the
for
slide,
a
sir.
slide is not visible. Just a minute. It's visible.
Yes, sir. Now it's visible.
Okay, so last class already we did this. We have discussed how the energy function we can derive the generalized energy function, and in that the kinetic energy and the potential energy we have segregated into two components, and we little bit we discussed potential energy boundary surface. The potential energy boundary surface method, that is nothing but when the system actually reaches the critical point, that is the boundary, we call it potential energy boundary, where if we'll consider this ball and the ball system, where the ball, if we'll give a disturbance, it will move upward, and if the energy, kinetic energy, is absorbed before it reaches the unstable equilibrium point, then again it will come back and oscillate. It will oscillate, and finally it will settle down at the stable equilibrium point. So this point is known as your stable equilibrium point, and these 2 points are known as unstable equilibrium point. Okay, if your kinetic energy, if your disturbance is such huge that your kinetic energy is just, it it, it is absorbed and it is greater than the energy required to reach this point, then obviously it will go beyond the unstable equilibrium point, and then your system will become unstable. So this is the concept for potential energy boundary surface method. Already we discussed. So let us, already also we talked little bit about the single machine infinite bus system, how we'll derive the energy function and the critical energy, all these things. So let us consider a single machine infinite bus system. Already we talked in the last class these things. So we are considering a single machine and it is connected to infinite bus through two parallel lines having a line reactance XL and the transformer reactance is XT. So a three-phase fault occurs at the middle of the second line, this line, and at t equal to 0, and subsequently it is cleared at t equal to TCL. By opening the circuit breakers at both ends of the faulted line, so we can see here that your equivalent circuit will look like this before the fault occurs. So this is under pre-fault condition, and your final equivalent circuit will become like this, and we can have P equal to E1 E2 by Xi. Xi is the equivalent reactance between the infinite bus and the machine. Then finally we got this. Then during fault we got this type of equivalent circuit, and obviously it is possible to find out the equivalent reactance very easily just by converting these star points, these two star points, into delta equivalent. and adding those parallel circuits will get the equivalent circuit, and finally we'll get the equivalent reactance XF, that is during fault. And during fault your electrical power output will be E1 E2 by XF sine delta, and XF can be computed for this network by performing Y delta transformation. And this is after fault. The fault is cleared, we'll get this kind of simple equivalent circuit, because the line is stripped from the both ends by the circuit breaker. So the computation of Xi and X, that is before fault and after fault, post fault, is straightforward. However, computation of XF is cumbersome because it takes some Y delta transformation. But in case of a network, if it is not a single machine infinite bus system, it is much more cumbersome. So therefore, let us discuss a general method that is applicable to the multi-machine case as well. So we need to reduce this network, whole network, this from bus 1 to bus 2 into a single network. So if I'll make this, then if I'll write the Y bus for this, it will be, the size will be 2 by 2. Okay, because it will become, it has only two nodes, node number 1 and node number 2. If I'll reduce this network, then the Y bus I'll write whose size will be 2 by 2. But if without reduction, now I have how many nodes? 1, 2, 3 and 4. I have 4 nodes. Therefore my Y bus, original Y bus network will have 4 by 4 size. So this is your original Y bus matrix. You can see here. Okay, so there are current injections at nodes 1, 2, because here we are injecting the current at node number 1, node number 2, and also node number 4, because 4 is short circuited here. So here we are injecting the current, whether it is negative or positive. It depends upon the circuit configuration or the fault type. So but the injection, if you'll see the current injection at node 3, it is 0, because whatever current is coming here, it will go through these two branches. Or if it will come through this, then it will go this way. So the net current injection is 0 at bus number 3. So therefore I can write the current equation in terms of Y bus and voltage. So I3 will be 0. Rest terms are non-zeros, I1, I2 and I4. And now your Y bus matrix multiplied with the voltage vector. So how I can write the Y bus matrix? So Y bus matrix elements are Y11, here Y12, Y13, Y14, right, like that. So here also Y21, Y22, Y23. Then finally here also it is Y41. But these elements, if we'll see, Y12 and Y14, Y21 and Y41, they are all 0, because if you'll see Y12, because there is no connection between, if you know the formulation of Y bus, you can understand better, because you have studied this in your undergraduate courses also during load flow study, right? So we can see here 1 and 2, they are not connected directly. So therefore I can write Y12 as 0. Similarly 1 and 4, if we'll see, they are also not directly connected. So I can write Y14 as 0. Similarly 2-1 will become 0 and 4-1 will also become 0. So this is your Y bus formulation matrix. Y bus matrix, right? Now we'll see if the fault is, suppose let us say the fault is a bolted fault. Bolted fault means the resistance, the fault resistance is 0. Okay. If it is arcing fault, then obviously the fault resistance will have some value. But if it's a bolted fault, then we can reduce this circuit. Let us assume a bolted fault, and we can reduce this circuit more. into 3 by 3 network. Let us see if it is bolted fault, then your I4 also will become 0, right? Since the fault at node 4 with fault impedance equal to 0, so V4 will become 0. Hence we can delete row 4 and row column, right? Column 4 and column row, right? So now we can delete this, and because I4 will also will become 0 because V4 is 0. So then I can write here that I1, I2, 0, and your Y bus matrix became 3 by 3. E1, E2, V3, right? You will see the previous equation here. If we'll substitute V4 equal to 0, right? Then your I4 will be V4. If it is 0, then this row and this column will be deleted, right? For fourth row and fourth column. Then your matrix will this, and your reduced matrix will become this one. Right, now we can eliminate node number 3 by just expressing V3 in terms of U1, E2 and substituting in the above two equations. So now if we'll write the last equation from the last row, that will, I can write V3 equal to, I can write V3 equal to 1 by Y33 into minus, right, minus of 1 by Y33 Y31 U1 plus Y32 E2. Now this V3 I can substitute in these above two equations, then I can have only two equations and I can get a reduced Y bus matrix further, right? Now just doing this manipulation, I can have this equation, that is I1 I2 equal to Y11 minus Y13 Y33 inverse Y31, then minus Y13 Y33 inverse Y32, right? All these elements will be there, and E1, it is multiplied with E1 and E2. So now we have a system that is having two nodes, and current injections are I1 and I2, and the voltages are E1 and E2, right? Now from this we can easily find XF. How we'll find XF? You can see here this for this system your for this system we this is for post fault system. Now I can write, if we'll write this, I can write a 2 by 2 matrix, right? For this system I can write I1 I2 equal to a Y bus matrix which is 2 by 2 E1 E2, right? And this Y bus matrix element Y11 Y12 Y21 and Y22. So what this Y12 will represent? Y12 is nothing but it is minus of 1 by JXF, right? So this Y12 is nothing but it is minus of 1 by JXF, right? So the same thing we can write here. We can write it here as, sorry, minus of JXF equal to minus of Y13 Y3 inverse Y32. So minus minus will cancel, then 1 by J of XF will become equal to Y13 Y33 inverse Y32. Now from this, if we'll substitute each of the element Y13 Y33 inverse and Y32, then we'll get these elements, and finally we'll get 1 by J of X1 plus 3xg. So then I can write XF equal to x1 plus 3xg. So this is finally we got this xf. So this is a generalized method which can also be applicable for a multi-machine system. Okay. So this is all about how we can reduce the system to find the post-fault equation, post-fault power equation, electrical power output equation. So now let us find the energy function for a single machine infinite bus system. How we'll derive this energy function. So the energy function is always constructed for the post-fault system. And in the SMIB case, the post-fault equations we can write as this. That is m of d square delta by dt square equal to Pm minus P max sine delta. So that we know already, where P max equal to E1, E2 by X. This is for single machine infinite bus system. And delta is the angle relative to the infinite bus. So delta is the angle of the Mason with respect to the infinite bus. So d delta by dt already we know this is the relative speed, and this is nothing but this is equal to omega m minus omega s. Omega m is the speed of the Mason and omega s is the synchronous speed. This is the relative speed, already we know this. So this is the relative rotor angle velocity. So the basic procedure already we know out when we are finding the critical time, critical clearing time. First we need to construct the energy function or Lyapunov function, that is V theta omega tilde. That is for the post-fault system. Then from this we'll find the critical value of V theta omega tilde for a given fault denoted by V critical. Then we'll integrate the faulted system equation until this V theta omega will be equal to V critical, and after integrating we'll get the critical clearing time. Okay, so this is the generalized function for energy function, generalized expression for the energy function, and using this we'll now derive the expression for energy function for a single machine infinite bus system. So we know for single machine infinite bus, theta equal to delta minus delta naught, because for a multi machine case we have taken sorry, please mute your mic. Theta equal to delta minus delta naught. For multi-machine system, we know theta equal to delta minus delta O. So this delta O was nothing but center of inertia, right? So here delta O is the angle of the infinite bus. And in this case, delta O is 0, right? Similarly, I can write theta S equal to delta S minus delta O. Here delta O is the angle of the infinite bus, that is also 0 here, right? So now substituting the above in the energy function equation, so what I'll get, and omega, when omega tilde is here, is nothing but omega, right? So omega tilde is equal to omega here. So now substituting these values, your V delta omega will become, here if I'll substitute, it will become half m of omega square. This is for single machine, right? Now the integration will be from delta S to delta Pm minus P max sine delta, that is with respect to d delta. So now after integration and substituting delta S and delta, I will get these two terms, half of m omega square minus Pm into delta minus delta S minus P max cos delta minus cos delta S. So this is in fact the energy function which can be segregated into two parts. One is your kinetic energy and other one is your potential energy. So your kinetic energy portion is this and your potential energy is this. So this is the energy function for a single Mason infinite bus system. So now we'll recall the swing equation. That is nothing but m d square delta by dt square, that is equal to Pm minus P max sine delta. Already we know this for a post fault system. And now we'll substitute, let us substitute this. Instead of Pm minus P sine delta, I will substitute this. How? So if I'll take the partial derivative, negative partial derivative of this energy function, I will get Pm minus P max sine delta, which instead of Pm minus P max sine delta here, I can substitute minus delta P delta by delta of delta. So therefore I can write this equation as m of d square delta by dt square plus partial derivative with respect to delta, partial derivative of the potential energy with respect to delta, that is equal to 0. So let us multiply this equation with d delta by dt. So after multiplying, we'll get this equation, right? If we'll multiply this equation with d delta by dt, I'll get d by dt of this will be equal to nothing but d of dt will be nothing but m d delta upon dt square delta upon dt square plus d delta by dt d vpe delta by del delta, right? This I can write in this form, right? That is derivative with respect to time and this function, that is m by 2 d delta by dt whole square plus vp delta, right? Very simple, I can write this. Okay, so now I can write this equation instead of this, because this is your kinetic energy, because d by delta is nothing but omega, so I can write half of m omega square plus vp delta. So I can write this as d by dt of vk omega plus vp delta, that is equal to 0, and which is nothing but d by dt of the energy function, that is equal to 0. Okay, so now I can write this. From this equation it will follow that v of delta omega is equal to a constant e, because the derivative of this term is 0. So I can write this energy function as constant. Okay, this will be equal to constant, which is sum of the kinetic and potential energy, and it remains constant once the fault is cleared. So the system becomes conservative once the fault is cleared. So before the fault is cleared, that means during fault the system is not conservative, where the energy is not constant, energy is not remaining constant during the fault. Just after the fault is cleared, now the E, the energy function, or the total energy in the system will become constant. as now the system is not connected to the external body or external disturbance. Now the system is isolated, and the energy, the total energy in the system will be conserved. It is conservative, and the total energy will become constant, and it will remain constant for the till stability, till it becomes stabilizes. So this V delta omega, that is energy function, evaluated at t equal to TCL from the faulted trajectory, represents the total energy E. Okay, that represents the total energy when we'll evaluate this energy function V delta omega at t equal to TCL. So this energy must be absorbed, okay, by the system once the fault is cleared, if the system is to be stable. If it is not absorbed or it go beyond Vp, that potential energy, then it will become unstable. So the kinetic energy is always positive and is the difference between E and Vp delta. E is the total energy. Now we can see this characteristic, how the energy, the potential energy varies throughout as the fault is cleared and how it varies. Okay. Now we can see here this point, the point delta S is the stable equilibrium point, right? Now suppose the fault is cleared at delta equal to delta CL, then from this point your total energy will remain constant. This total energy will remain constant. That means VPCL plus VKCL, that will give us the total energy, and it will remain constant, and it is marked as point B here. Point A and point B, you can note it here. Up to point A, it gives the potential energy, and this curve is in fact the potential energy curve. It is not the total energy curve, it is the potential energy curve, and it indicates how the potential energy is varying. So at the stable equilibrium point, if we'll see at delta S, what will be the value of potential energy? At delta S, it will become 0. And similarly, your kinetic energy also will become 0, because omega equal to 0. The relative speed for with respect to omega s is 0. So therefore at this point the potential energy and the kinetic energy both is 0. So therefore here the total energy is 0 at stable equilibrium point.
So why is delta a stable equilibrium point?
Sorry?
So why is delta a stable equilibrium point?
It is considered, it is a notation. Delta S is the stable. We have assumed that delta S is a stable equilibrium point. Okay.
Okay.
And similarly, we have other equilibrium points, those are unstable. Like here we have another equilibrium point which is unstable, and here also another equilibrium point. If I'll mark delta S as the stable equilibrium point, my unstable equilibrium point to the right will be pi minus delta S, and similarly to the left it will be minus pi minus delta S, right? We'll see it further in the equal area criterion. Here if we'll see the P versus delta, and this is your PM curve. This is your delta S, stable equilibrium point. Okay. And at this point, at this stable equilibrium point, your energy is 0, because your kinetic energy and potential energy, they are 0, right? And as soon as it reaches the unstable equilibrium point, this will be your unstable equilibrium point, right? So this is delta U. Delta U. So this is one unstable equilibrium point at the right. And similarly in the left also we have another, we have another unstable equilibrium point. This is here, right? So this point is which is marked here, delta U cap, that is minus pi minus delta S. Is clear? So we have nearest to the stable equilibrium point, we have two other equilibrium point, those are unstable. One is delta U, which is at the right side, and other one is it left side, which is minus pi minus delta S, right? Okay. So these are two unstable equilibrium points, and at the stable equilibrium point, we know from the calculation, from the computation, we can see that the kinetic energy and the potential energy both are 0. Now as the fault is cleared at delta CL, then the potential energy will increase gradually, right? Okay, it will gradually increase further till this point, till unstable equilibrium point, where it will be the maximum, right? And here the total energy, we can see the total energy is this much, and if this total energy is greater than this Vp, obviously it becomes unstable, right? Vp delta U. So therefore, if your total energy is less than Vp delta U, then your system is stable. As we can see here, as the uh, system will accelerate, gradually it will accelerate, and after, as soon as the fault is cleared, it will accelerate, and simultaneously the kinetic energy will gradually decrease, it will be absorbed, and the potential energy will increase in the machine, and finally it will achieve the steady state speed, that is the synchronous speed, right? Okay, so therefore the kinetic energy is being converted to the potential energy in this area, right, in this zone. So this total energy, if we'll see, if it is greater than the potential energy at the unstable equilibrium point, then the system becomes unstable. We can see here further. So at delta equal to delta S, the post-fault stable equilibrium point, both Vk and Vp are 0. Since omega equal to 0 and delta equal to delta S, if we'll substitute these two values in the energy function, this will give us 0 value. Suppose that at the end of the faulted period equal to L, the rotor angle is delta equal to delta CL, and the velocity is omega CL, then your energy function will become, that is VCL delta CL omega CL. Will just by substituting delta CL and omega CL, we'll get this equation, and this will give us nothing but the energy of the system. So that means if we'll evaluate the energy function, if we know the energy function and we'll evaluate it at clearing time, if you know the delta CL and omega CL, and if we'll evaluate, that will give us the energy of the system. And based on the energy of the system, we can know whether the system is stable or unstable. How we'll know? There are two other equilibrium points of this system, namely delta U equal to pi minus delta S and delta U cap, which is minus pi minus delta S. So the potential energy is 0 at delta equal to delta S and has a relative maximum at delta equal to delta. So at the boundary point, when it reaches the boundary surface, at that point your kinetic energy becomes 0 and the potential energy becomes maximum. So that is why it is mentioned the relatively the potential energy is maximum at delta equal to delta U and also delta equal to delta U cap. At the point A means where the clearing delta CL and omega CL are known from the faulted trajectory. Hence, V of delta CL and omega CL equal to E is known. So this delta CL and omega CL are calculated from the faulted trajectory. That means from the faulted equation, we calculate this delta CL and omega CL. Then using that delta CL and omega CL, by substituting this in the energy function, we calculate the energy, total energy in the system. So this is marked in the point B. So if your total energy becomes less than Vp delta U, then since the system is conservative, the cleared system at point A will accelerate until point B, right? As we can see here in the last slide, here, if your E is less than this, then as soon as the fault is cleared, your system will accelerate till point B, right? Then after that, again, it will decelerate and it will stabilize at this point. So that is what is mentioned here, that if E is less than Vp delta U, then since the system is conservative, the cleared system at point A will accelerate until point B and then start decelerating. If E is greater than this, Vp delta U, then the cleared system will accelerate beyond delta U. Obviously, it will accelerate beyond delta U, and hence the system will become unstable. Okay. So if we'll calculate Vp, this is your energy function, Vp delta. If we'll calculate this at delta equal to delta U, that is pi minus delta S, so this is nothing but it will become minus Pm pi minus 2 delta S. Just by substituting pi minus delta S in the energy function, we'll get minus Pm pi minus 2 delta S plus 2 P max cos of delta S. Similarly, if delta decreases, so this is the condition when the fault is cleared, your delta increases. And suppose some kind of fault happened, your delta decreases. Okay. So then in that case, as t increases and delta decreases, then the system is unstable if E is greater than Vp delta U cap. That means if your system will decelerate, then your system will approach the unstable equilibrium point at the left hand side, that is delta U cap. Okay. So then if your E is greater than this Vp delta U cap, then if we'll evaluate Vp, then your system will become unstable. Then we can evaluate Vp at delta equal to delta U cap, that is nothing but Vp delta U cap is nothing but this minus Pm minus pi minus 2 delta S plus 2 P max cos delta S. So then points U and delta U cap constitute the zero dimensional PEBS for single meson system. So it is interesting to relate the potential well concept. This is known as potential well concept, like your curve is looking like this. Okay. So therefore this is known as potential well well concept of PEBS for single meson infinite bus. So to the stability equilibrium points for small disturbance. So this concept also can be extended to the stability of the equilibrium points if you will consider the small disturbances as well. How it is? Let us see how we can analyze the small disturbances, that means small signal analysis, using this concept, this energy concept. So now we know this equation, that is the swing, from the swing equation we know that m of d square delta by dt square equal to minus a partial derivative of potential energy with respect to delta. That we can expand the right hand side of this equation in a Taylor series. If we'll expand this right hand side expression using the Taylor series expansion, at the equilibrium point, let us say delta star, that is delta equal to delta star plus delta delta, and retain only the linear terms, then we can write this equation, right? That is m of d square delta delta upon dt square equal to minus of partial derivative square for Vp delta, and if it is evaluated at delta star multiplied with delta delta. So this is very simple, already we know this. By just taking the Taylor series, you can do this. So now this equation can be written like this, that is m d square delta delta by dt square plus double derivative partial derivative of Vp delta 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 equal to 0. So now from this condition, if we'll see, this is your equation, and which is also, we can say this is a characteristic, this will give us the characteristic equation. And if this value, that means your double the partial derivative of Vp evaluated at delta star, if it is less than 0, if it is minus, then your system will become unstable, right? Because this side it will become positive, and this will give us a positive value. The eigenvalue will remain in the right hand side, so therefore the system will become unstable. Similarly, if your double derivative of this evaluated at delta star will be greater than 0, then your eigenvalue will lie in the left hand side, and it will become, the system is the stable system, right? So directly by evaluating the energy function at a equilibrium point or at stable equilibrium point, you can say, just by evaluating this, you can simply know whether a system is stable or unstable for small signal analysis, right? Very simple. So then it is an oscillatory system, and because there is the damping term we have neglected here, so it is an oscillatory system, and the oscillation is around delta star, and but it is bounded. The oscillation is bounded. Since there is always some positive damping, we may call it stable. So because the damping is always there because of the friction, windage, and other aspects, so it is always positive. So therefore, we can say your system will be bounded and stable. So now we'll consider one example. So this example will clarify more. And this example is taken from MAPI book. You can also see this example. So let us consider a single machine infinite bus system whose post-fault equation is given by this equation. So this is the post-fault equation. 0.2 d square delta by dt square equal to 1 minus 2 sine delta minus of 0.02 d delta by dt. So what this represents, we can see this is your left hand side. Obviously this is m d square delta by dt square, and this is your pm, nothing but pm, right? 1 is pm, and 2 sine delta is p max sine delta. So p max is 2 here, and this term is your damping term or damping torque, right? Okay, this is your speed, change in speed, right? A relative speed, and this is your damping factor 0.02. Okay, so now the question is find the eigenvalues at all the equilibrium points. So how many equilibrium points we have? 3 equilibrium points, 1 stable equilibrium point and 2 unstable equilibrium points. Now the question is find the eigenvalues at all the equilibrium points. How will find? If we know the system matrix in state space form or state space model, then easily we can find the eigenvalues. So let us convert this into a state space model. So your stable equilibrium point will be sine inverse half, right? Because this is P max sine delta, so delta will be sine inverse of half. So therefore it will become stable equilibrium point. And similarly your unstable equilibrium point, one unstable equilibrium point will be pi minus 6, that is pi by 6, and other unstable equilibrium point will be delta u cap, that is minus 7 pi by 6. So let us linearize this equation around the equilibrium point. By linearizing, we'll get this equation 0.2 d square delta by dt square equal to minus 2 cos delta 0. So delta 0 is nothing but is initial point, right? Where the values are calculated, or the partial derivative is calculated. Delta minus 0.02 d delta by dt. So this can be put in the state space form easily, right? So we can write these equations in the state space form because we know that delta dot is equal to delta omega, and other equation is this. This is one equation, and other equation is this. So this is equation 1, this is equation 2. So using this equation 1 and 2, I can write this state space model, right? So just by writing this state space equation, from this state space equation, I have this A matrix. So now if I'll substitute delta 0 is nothing but delta S, that is the stable equilibrium point equal to pi by 6, then you can get the A matrix, and from A matrix you will find the eigenvalues. And from this we can see the eigenvalues are both are lying at the left hand side, and therefore your system is stable. Similarly, if we evaluate this A matrix at unstable equilibrium point, that is delta U or delta U cap, then I can see the eigenvalues are lambda 1 is 2.993 and lambda 2 is minus 2.893. So therefore this system becomes unstable, right? Okay. So both are saddle points. Since there is only one eigenvalue in the right half plane, so it is called a type 1 UEP. Type 1 UEP means one of the eigenvalue is at the right hand side. So UEP means unstable equilibrium point. Okay. Now we'll extend this example. Just I'll say that just construct the energy function for the above example and verify the stability of the equilibrium points by using the equation this. Already we know this equation. By using this, we'll verify the stability of the system, whether it is matching with the eigenvalue analysis or not. Okay. So
Sir,
the energy function, Hari? Yes.
sir, that example is for small signal analysis or
Small
large,
signal analysis. Small signal
because you are doing
analysis.
linearization. Okay, yes.
Yes, yes, it is small signal analysis. Okay.
Okay, okay, sir.
So now if we'll match with the eigenvalue analysis. In the eigenvalue analysis, we found that in the stable equilibrium point, the system is stable, and in unstable equilibrium point, the system becomes unstable. Just by using the energy function approach, whether it is giving the accurate result or not. Let us see. So the energy function we can construct using the equation for an undamped system, right? So the damping effect we are neglecting here. So the energy function I can write here is this, right? This is the energy function. Just by substituting delta S equal to pi by 6, and so energy function you will get here, right? So this will become your energy function. So now we know energy function. Now we'll take the we'll find the potential energy function. So the potential energy function is nothing but this one. This is your potential energy function, which is repeated here, right? Now we'll take the double partial derivative of the potential energy function. If I'll take the double partial derivative of this, I will get twice of cos delta. Okay. Now by substituting delta star in this, I will easily find the stability of the system, whether the system is stable or unstable. So first we'll evaluate this at the stable equilibrium point, that is at delta equal to delta S, that is equal to pi by 6. So 2 cos delta will be greater than 0, hence your delta S is stable. Okay. So at delta equal to delta U, that is pi by 6, or delta U cap equal to minus 7 by 6. So this is 2 cos delta is less than 0. This is less than 0. So your system becomes unstable. Right? They are unstable equilibrium points. So very easily we can verify the stable equilibrium point or unstable equilibrium point by using this method also. Suppose the system is there and you know some equilibrium points and you don't know which is the stable equilibrium point, which is the unstable equilibrium point. You can use this method very easily, and if you know the energy function, you can very easily use this method to find out the stable equilibrium point and the unstable equilibrium point, just by evaluating this potential energy, taking the double derivative and evaluating at the equilibrium points. You can find whether it is stable equilibrium point or unstable equilibrium point. Okay,
Sir,
so this is all about yeah, tell me.
sir, here the second derivative of the energy function is the positive. That means you are trying to find out the minimum value or convex shape for the stable equilibrium point, right? Is
Yeah,
it that so?
yeah, that is true. So this in fact,
Yes.
This is the Hessian. Okay. This is the Hessian. In case of multi-Mason system, it is the Hessian. Okay.
Okay, sir.
It will give a matrix, Hessian matrix. Okay. So this is all about today's class. Any other question or any other comments?
Sir, can we have that Monday class from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6? Can we
Sorry,
shift
Monday
that?
class?
Can we
Monday
shift that
class on?
from to 5 to 6?
Monday class was 3 to 4, right?
Sir, can we shift that to 5 to 6?
So instead of